I stepped into the lobby of Vanguard Technologies at exactly 6:42 m. lat, in my left hand, security badge clipped to my blazer pocket. The building was still sleeping. Lights flickering on in sections, the hum of servers, the only sound cutting through the silence. That's how I preferred it. No chatter, no forced pleasantries. Just me and the work that had consumed the last 8 years of my life. The elevator ride to the 31st floor felt longer than usual that morning. Maybe it was the weight of what I was carrying. 3 active patents, under my name. 4 more in the pipeline. The entire Apollo framework. The neural adaptive security system that Vanguard had built their reputation on, ran on architecture I designed from scratch. Before we dive in, I'd love to know how's your morning treating you, and what city are you tuning in from? When the doors opened, I walked straight to my corner workspace. Floor-toiling windows overlooked downtown Seattle. The Space Needle poking through early mist, ferries cutting across Elliott Bay. I'd fought for this view. Earned it. Every sleepless night, every discarded prototype, every presentation where I had to explain my own work to people who couldn't code their way out of a basic loop. It all led here. I dropped my bag on the desk and pulled up the server, logs from overnight. Everything looked clean. Apollo was running at 99.7% efficiency across all client networks. No breaches, no anomalies, no flags, perfect. Then I heard the elevator chime behind me. I glanced over my shoulder and saw him for the first time. Marcus Ellington. Tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my first car. Italian leather shoes that clicked against the polished concrete floor. And a face that screamed entitlement. He moved through the open workspace like he was surveying property he just inherited, which wasn't far from the truth. His father, Harrison Ellington, owned 62% of Vanguard. That made Marcus untouchable in ways that had nothing to do with talent. He didn't notice me at first. I watched him pause at a few workstations, tapping monitors, flipping through project boards like he was shopping. Then his eyes landed on me. Confusion flickered across his face. Then something worse, amusement. Didn't think anyone would be here this early, he said, stepping into my space without invitation. I'm here every morning, I'd replied, not looking up from my screen. Apollo doesn't monitor itself. He tilted his head, studying me like I was some curiosity he couldn't quite place. So, your Serenity Miles. That's what my badge says. Lead architect on Apollo. 3 patents, full system design. 4 patents pending, I corrected. And yes, he let out a low whistle. The kind that made my skin crawl. Huh. You're not what I pictured. I finally looked up at him. What did you picture? Someone older, maybe less. He waved his hand vaguely. You know, less what? He smirked. I figured you were just the pretty face they rolled out for investor demos. Didn't realize you actually built the thing. I stood up slowly, setting my coffee down with deliberate care. Let me make something very clear, Marcus. This pretty face designed every single layer of the system keeping this company solvent. If you want Apollo to keep running, I'd suggest treating me like the engineer I am, not whatever fantasy you've constructed in that mediocre brain of yours. His jaw tightened. The smirk vanished. Welcome to Vanguard, I added. Try not to break anything important. I sat back down and returned to my work. He stood there for another 10 seconds silent. Then turned and walked toward the executive wing. I didn't watch him go. I already knew exactly what kind of problem he was going to become. That was Monday. By Thursday, I realized the problem was worse than I thought. I was working from home that night. VPN tunneled into the company network. Running diagnostics on a new encryption layer I'd been testing. It was almost one Hozard A.M. Some crime documentary played in the background. Something about art heists I wasn't really paying attention to. My focus was locked on the activity monitor when I noticed something strange. A secondary access point had pinged one of my legacy directories. The old framework files I'd archived months ago, untouched since the last major system migration. Then it pinged again. Then again I pulled up the access logs. Junior engineer Nathan Cross, fresh out of grad school, barely 6 months on the team. No clearance for that directory. No reason to be in there at all. But there he was, downloading chunks of my proprietary code, not just browsing, extracting, copying core logic, blocks, the foundational algorithms I'd spent 2 years perfecting. Then I noticed something else. His session wasn't solo, someone else was watching in real time, writing a shared screen connection. I traced the session ID back to its origin. Executive Access Terminal. Pig Ellington, and my stomach dropped. Marcus wasn't just snooping. He was orchestrating, feeding Nathan instructions, watching him copy my work. Piece by piece. Probably planning to rebrand it under his own name or bury my involvement entirely. I didn't panic, didn't shout, didn't throw my laptop across the room, though the thought crossed my mind. Instead, I started recording. Full session capture, screen activity logs, timestamp data, IP verification, everything. I pulled backup authentication records from my personal cloud, timestamped files from when I was still prototyping Apollo on my own hardware, before Vanguard ever came into the picture. Every scrap of evidence that proved ownership, origin, and intent. By the time the sun came up, I had a digital paper trail that could hold up in federal court. I didn't sleep. I packed everything into encrypted folders, backed it up on 3 separate drives, and sent copies to my attorney Diane Roth. She'd handled my first patent filing 4 years ago. She knew exactly how ugly corporate IP theft could get. 30 a.m., I was already in the office. At 9:15, my director sent a meeting request. Executive review. 11 a.m., bring Apollo documentation. I knew it was coming. I'd been expecting it, since the moment I saw Marcus's session ID in those logs. I showed up at 10:50. Marcus was already seated at the head of the conference table, looking like he'd been there for an hour. His father, Harrison Ellington, stood near the window with his arms crossed, expression carved from stone. The kind of man who'd built an empire and expected everyone to bow accordingly. When I walked in, Marcus slid a manila folder across the table. "Serenity," he began, voice smooth and rehearsed. "We've been reviewing your contributions to the Apollo project. Given the scope and scale of the system, we believe it's in the company's best interest to consolidate intellectual property ownership. This document transfers patent rights and framework control to Vanguard in exchange for a compensation package." I flipped the folder open. Single sheet buyout offer, 15,000 payment. No royalties. No licensing agreements, no continued recognition. I laughed. Actually laughed. "You're joking." "It's a fair offer," Marcus said, leaning back like he just closed a deal. "You built this on company time. It belongs to Vanguard." I looked at Harrison. "Is that what he told you?" Harrison's voice was low, controlled. "The legal team reviewed it. This is standard IP consolidation." "Standard," I said, closing the folder. "I built the core architecture for Apollo 18 months before you ever hired me. I hold 3 active patents filed, independently, time-stamped, and verified through the U.S. Patent Office. I've got another 4 pending approval. Everything you're trying to claim is documented, protected, and traceable directly back to my original designs." Marcus' expression shifted just slightly. "Enough for me to notice. You had a junior engineer break into my proprietary files at 100 in the morning." I continued, locking eyes with him. "I have the logs, Marcus. I have video of your executive session overseeing it. That's not consolidation, that's theft." Silence. Harrison stepped closer. "Serenity, let's not make this hostile. You made it hostile when you tried to steal my work." I shot back. "I've already retained legal counsel. Every file you accessed is protected under federal intellectual property law. If you want to test that in court, say the word. But understand this. Apollo is built on my framework. Without me, your entire system collapses in less than 48 hours. You shipped that product without my authorization, and I will sue you into the ground." Nobody moved. I stood up, pushed the folder back toward Marcus, and looked at Harrison. "Next time you want something from me, try asking like an adult." Then I walked out. I didn't go home after that meeting. I went straight back to my desk, locked my office door, and got to work. First thing I did, killed every legacy access key tied to Apollo. Every backdoor, every shared authentication token, every administrative override that existed outside my direct control. If you didn't have my biometric clearance and my personal encryption key, you weren't getting in. Period. Then I implemented dual-factor authentication on every critical node in the system. Real-time identity verification, rotating passwords, session tracking. I rebuilt the entire access infrastructure from the ground up. mapped it directly to my development logs, and made sure every modification was timestamped and logged. By Friday night, I was still in the office, hoodie on, hair pulled back, cold brew, and granola bars stacked on my desk. I hadn't pulled an all-nighter like this since grad school. And honestly, I loved every second of it. I rewrote the backup protocols, encrypted the master keys with cascading security layers, deleted old murals that Marcus or anyone else might have tried to access, rebuilt the version control system, and linked every iteration of Apollo directly to my original design documentation. If they wanted to reverse engineer my work, they'd hit a 100 walls, every single one traceable back to me. By Sunday afternoon I was done. Then I called Diane. I need to file 5 more patents. I told her adaptive response protocols, behavioral prediction modules, threat detection algorithms, and 2 interface frameworks. Same ownership structure, she asked. All under my name. Timestamped, notarized, filed. No ambiguity. She didn't ask why. She already understood. Monday morning, I walked in looking like I'd slept like a baby. Marcus was waiting by the coffee station, arms folded, jaw tight. I smiled. You've been busy, he said. You have no idea. He followed me down the hall, stepping in front of my door before I could swipe my badge. You think this changes anything? We still own the platform. You own the name? I said calmly. You don't own the engine. You don't own the logic. And you sure as hell don't own the patents. His voice dropped. You're playing a dangerous game. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and turned to face him. The only game here is the one where I stop you from committing federal IP theft. And, trust me Marcus, I've already won. He stepped closer, voice low and sharp. You think you can just lock us out of our own system? It's not your system, I said. It's mine. And if you try that backdoor stunt again, I'll bury you so deep in legal paperwork, you'll be explaining yourself to a judge before your father even knows what happened. He stared at me, trying to figure out if I was bluffing. I wasn't. I'm not scared of you, I said quietly. And I'm not going anywhere. He didn't respond. Just clenched his jaw. Turned and walked away. I shut the door behind him, sat down at my desk and drafted a company-wide security update. New login credentials for everyone. Every access route that didn't go through me did. By noon, every engineer on the Apollo team had new authentication protocols. And Marcus locked out completely. I had just finished updating the last firewall when the calendar invite hit my inbox. Subject: urgent executive board meeting. Time: 2 p.m. Location: main conference room. Attendees: full board plus legal counsel. I leaned back in my chair and smiled. They weren't even pretending anymore. When I walked into that conference room, it was packed. 12 board members, 3 corporate lawyers in suits that cost more than my rent, and Harrison Ellington standing at the front like he was about to deliver a sermon. Marcus sat at the far end, arms crossed, eyes locked on me. I didn't say a word. I just took a seat, opened my laptop and waited. Harrison started talking in that smooth, controlled tone he probably used to intimidate contractors. Thank you all for coming on short notice. We're here to address concerns surrounding the Apollo framework and resolve the current intellectual property dispute. I didn't blink. We've consulted with our legal team, he continued, and we believe we can resolve this matter internally without escalating to litigation. One of the lawyers slid a document across the table. Revised buyout agreement. Long-term retention bonus, stock options, a bigger number this time. I didn't touch it. First of all, I said, voice even. We're not negotiating anything without my attorney present. You scheduled this meeting without notifying her, which means whatever you're trying to pull here is already out of bounds. A few board members shifted uncomfortably. Harrison's tone hardened. This isn't a courtroom serenity. Then why is legal in the room? I asked. No answer. I stood up and connected my laptop to the projector. Since we're all here, let me present a few things myself. The screen lit up, Foot view. On the left, a server log showing Marcus executive session ID. On the right, screen capture footage of Nathan Cross accessing my proprietary files, timestamped, IP verified, and traced directly back to a home network Marcus had used multiple times. You could have heard a pin drop. This wasn't just an internal breach, I said calmly. You accessed my personal cloud storage, That's a federal crime under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. I have every log, every hash, every IP address to back it up. Harrison looked furious. Marcus looked like he wanted to flip the table. One of the older board members finally spoke. Is this verified? Every single entry, I said. And every file accessed during that breach is protected under registered patents. I've already submitted documentation to my attorney. Legal proceedings are prepped and ready if needed. The air in the room turned ice cold. So here's what's going to happen. I continued. You have two options. 1. You license my frameworks through a transparent, fair contract. I retain ownership. You get legal access to the system. Or 2. I pull every piece of protected code out of Apollo, and you lose the entire platform. Marcus shot up from his chair. You don't have the authority to. Don't finish that sentence. I cut in because I absolutely do. Harrison tried to salvage it. Serenity, let's be reasonable. We've invested millions into this launch. Then maybe you should have invested in honoring the person who built it, I said, instead of trying to rob her. Nobody spoke. They just stared. Some shocked, some furious. Some clearly realizing they'd walked into a trap they didn't see coming. I unplugged my laptop, slid it into my bag, and looked directly at Marcus. Next time, hire someone who actually knows how to code. Then I walked out, heels clicking against the floor. Every set of eyes in that room tracking me like I just detonated a bomb. They couldn't defuse. As I had, the next morning my badge didn't work. I stood at the front entrance, swiped it 3 times. Red light error beep, denied. The security guard at the desk wouldn't even look at me. I pulled out my phone and left a voicemail. Come, clear, direct. Marcus Ellington just revoked my building access documenting it. Tuesday 8:17 a.m. I walked around to the service entrance, used my backup facilities badge, the one I'd kept active for system emergencies. Disqualified. By 100 a.m., I was at my desk logged in checking system activity. Just like I expected. Someone had tried to push an unauthorized update into Apollo's testing environment overnight. The code was garbage. Looked like someone tried to rewrite my predictive algorithms from memory and failed halfway through. Marcus was panicking. I could feel it. By noon, messages started flooding in from other departments. Hey. Is it true you're leaving? Heard Apollo's being reassigned. Should we pause the next deployment? He was spreading rumors. Trying to make it look like I was already gone so people would stop trusting my authority. Classic move from someone who'd never earned respect on merit. I didn't react emotionally. I got strategic. That afternoon, I booked the largest conference room and sent one message to every engineer on the Apollo team. All hands meeting. 40:30 p.m. mandatory attendance. When they showed up, I didn't waste time. Everything I've built is protected under law, I said. Apollo can't function without the framework sitting on these servers. So, we're going to make it crystal clear just how much the system depends on our team and the patents attached to this technology. I broke them into units: core architecture, deployment, infrastructure, diagnostics, behavioral, response, front-end integration. We mapped every component that touched my intellectual property, flagged every dependency, documented it in triplicate. 3 hours later, we had a file so airtight it could have been submitted as evidence in federal court. I sent one copy to Diane. The other went onto a secure external server Marcus didn't even know existed. Then I headed to the parking garage. I was halfway to my car when I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't need to turn around. You've made your point, Marcus said, voice sharp and clipped. I stopped, turned slowly. I made it 4 days ago. He stepped closer. You really think this ends with you winning? You're screwing with power dynamics way above your pay grade. I smiled. Funny. I thought the guy who can't write a single line of code wasn't in a position to lecture me about power. His face twisted. You think this company cares about you? The second it's convenient, they'll throw you out. Then they'll lose. The only person keeping their flagship product from imploding. I said, can you say the same? He stared at me, caught somewhere between rage and disbelief. Control isn't about threats, Marcus. I said, it's about leverage, and right now, you don't have any. I have the code. I have the team, I have the patents, and I have every legal document proving I'm not the one playing dirty. He opened his mouth, then closed it, I'm not scared of you, I added. And I don't need this company to survive, do you? He didn't answer. I unlocked my car, got in, and shut the door. I saw him standing there in my rearview mirror as I drove away, frozen like he just realized he'd lost control of something he never actually had. That made two of us. Except I wasn't confused, I was ready. The next morning I arrived before anyone else. 3 weeks until Apollo launched. Everything that mattered was now on a countdown. I started with the master encryption keys. Each one tied to critical subsystems, adaptive learning, predictive modeling, real-time threat response. I rewrote the encryption from scratch, locked them behind timed release protocols, and synced the keys to my personal secure server. If anyone tried to bypass the timers or fake an entry point, the entire system would shut down permanently. This wasn't about security anymore. This was war. By midweek, I started noticing unfamiliar faces. Contractors in business casual walking around with tablets pretending to be part of the infrastructure team. I recognized two of them from a failed cybersecurity startup Marcus, a father, had tried to acquire last year. One of them got on the elevator with me. Tried to make small talk about machine learning optimization. I just smiled and said, "You're wasting your time." They were trying to rebuild what I'd created. Good luck with that. I spent the rest of the day monitoring server logs, external IPs, pinging modules they didn't understand. Searching for logic pathways that no longer existed. Everything I'd built was already buried under layers of abstraction and misdirection. Without my cooperation, Apollo was just a pretty interface with nothing underneath. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat at my kitchen counter, and opened the email from Catalyst Ventures. They weren't subtle. "We understand you hold proprietary frameworks tied to the Apollo platform. If Vanguard's internal situation no longer aligns with your professional interests, we'd like to discuss a potential acquisition." They named a figure, then hinted at equity. Made it clear they'd already been in contact with Diane. I didn't say yes, not yet, but I responded fast enough to make sure the right people found out. 2 days later, Harrison showed up on my floor, no assistant, no warning, just him, gray suit, tight expression. "Serenity," he said, trying to sound reasonable. "Let's talk." I didn't stand up. "Sure." He sat across from me, trying to remember how to be diplomatic. "We're hearing rumors, external interest, competitors making offers. I'm hoping that's not accurate." "Oh, it's accurate," I said. "It's also leverage." His jaw flexed. "You understand how critical Apollo is to this company. The board is watching, investors are watching. Then, they should know the truth." I said, "Your platform runs on my infrastructure. If I walk, your system crashes within 12 hours. Guaranteed." His mask slipped for just a second. "We can find a way to cooperate. I already gave you 2 options." I said, "License my technology fairly or lose access entirely." That window is closing. The next morning I ran a live demonstration for the board's internal auditors. Stripped-down version of Apollo running smoothly on a test server. Then mid-demo, I revoked my authentication. The entire system froze, 6 seconds, no recovery, just dead space. The auditors didn't say a word. They took notes and left the room like they knew exactly what they were going to report. That night, I left my office door open, lights on. Screen displaying real-time diagnostics running flawlessly. Marcus walked past twice, didn't say a word. He knew, and I wanted him to. I didn't wait for another ambush. The next morning I scheduled the meeting myself. Subject: Apollo Framework Dependency Review Time. Thursday, 9:00 a.m. Attendees: Board of Directors plus select investors. Remote. Presenter: Serenity Miles. I didn't ask permission. I sent the invite from my senior systems admin account with full authority access, and I looped in everyone who mattered. Including the 2 investors from Silicon Valley with the deepest pockets. I wanted witnesses and I made sure they were paying attention. At 8:59 sharp, I plugged in my laptop and launched the live sandbox. "This," I said as the system loaded, "is Apollo running in real time. Every core component, behavioral prediction, adaptive threat response, real-time learning protocols, all built on frameworks registered under my patents." I clicked one command, disabled a single dependency. The screen glitched, then froze. Every visual element stopped. The back-end process monitor flatlined. System error, 6 seconds. This entire platform, I said, is incapable of functioning without these components. Not legally, not technically. Not operationally. On screen, I pulled up a spreadsheet. 3 tabs: dependencies, patent IDs, licensing timeline. Each item linked to timestamps, filing records. My private development logs, and federal IP registry confirmations. Harrison's voice cut through the silence. Serenity, there's no need for dramatics. You didn't understand the situation 3 weeks ago, I said. You do now. We're willing to negotiate, he said carefully. Good, I replied, because the price just went up. Marcus leaned forward. You're extorting us. No, I said loud enough to silence him. I'm setting terms. You tried to steal my work. You locked me out of the building. You spread false rumors that I was leaving. You hired contractors to clone my systems. I stayed quiet. I kept this company from collapsing. And now I'm giving you a path forward. I pulled up the final slide. One number, bold red, impossible to ignore. 550 million exclusive licensing. Irrevocable, non-transferable. Harrison blinked. That's absurd. That's survival, I said. Every day you delay, it increases by 5 million. You have until Monday. One of the remote investors unmuted. Have your attorneys verified these dependency links? Every single one, I said. And my legal team is prepared to present in federal court if necessary. Silence. Then the eldest board member spoke, and Marcus. I looked him dead in the face. Removed. Effective immediately. No access, no oversight. He's a liability. Marcus, voice shot across the table. You can't just. I didn't do anything, I interrupted. You did it to yourself. Harrison tried to intervene. We can reassign responsibilities. No, I said. He's out or the deal's off. I watched them calculate losses from a delayed launch. Investor confidence, crumbling. Public fallout if my documentation went public. I didn't need to yell. The facts spoke for themselves. Finally, the board chair nodded. Motion to approve Miles's terms. 7 hands went up. 2 virtual approvals clicked in. Marcus was the only one that didn't move. I packed up my laptop, stood, and looked around the room. You tried to erase me from my own work. Instead, you gave me control over the entire operation. Marcus sat frozen, jaw locked, eyes empty. Send the paperwork by end of day, I said, or it's 600 million by Monday. Then I walked out, come steady. Already thinking 10 moves ahead because I hadn't just won, I bought the whole battlefield. By Friday afternoon, legal had cleared the payment. My licensing contract was signed, executed, and secured. Funds transferred. Dawn, that evening. Apollo launched. I stood in the observation room behind reinforced glass, watching it unfold. Giant screen showing the product feed streaming to clients, investors, media outlets. The auditorium downstairs was packed. Tech journalists, industry analysts, corporate partners, everyone wondering if Vanguard's future was real or just expensive smoke. It wasn't smoke. I watched the dashboards light up green one by one. Behavioral engine online. Predictive response stable. Feedback loops optimal. Every subsystem holding strong, exactly as designed. Beside me, 2 senior developers hovered near the monitors. Typing fast, whispering back and forth. I didn't interrupt. They knew what they were doing. We'd rehearsed this down to the keystroke. Downstairs, the MC called my name. I didn't go. I let the product speak for itself. Instead, I sent my lead engineer, Kira Ashford, out to run the live demo. He crushed it. Real-time learning curves. User flow adjustments, adaptive logic, responding as she spoke. The applause wasn't polite. It was genuine. When someone asked about the design structure, she said exactly what I told her to. This system exists because of Serenity, Miles. Nobody else could have built it. The camera panned to the observation window. I gave a short nod. That was all they needed. Afterward, investors shook my hand. Board members who'd voted against me a month ago suddenly remembered my name, calling me visionary and indispensable. One even joked about naming the next system after me. I smiled, didn't laugh. Harrison was there too, hanging back silent. Marcus wasn't. I knew he'd been formally removed from anything related to Apollo. The system wasn't just free from his interference. It was permanently protected. My team didn't care about the politics. They cared that the launch went flawlessly. 0 bugs, 0 crashes, full press cycle blowing up online within an hour. We held a small celebration in the break room. It's a cheap champagne. Kira playing music from her phone. I stayed until midnight, then left the last bottle on the counter with a note. "You earned this." As I stepped outside into the cool night air, I checked my phone. 2 new offers. One from a venture capital group in Austin. The other from a competitor. I'd turned down twice before. This time they were serious. Real money, real equity. They didn't just want my name, they wanted my vision. I stood in the parking lot for a moment, phone buzzing, in my hand, thinking about how far I'd come since the morning I walked into this building with a laddie and a badge. Apollo had launched. It was bulletproof. And now so was I. The Monday after launch I walked into Harrison's office, with a folder in one hand and my resignation letter in the other. He looked up from his desk, already pale, like he knew what was coming. "I'm done," I said, placing both on the table. 2 weeks' notice. Effective immediately. He blinked. "You're serious?" "I've never been more serious in my life." He glanced at the folder. "You just closed one of the largest licensing deals in company history. You really want to walk away now?" "I don't want to walk away," I said. "I want to walk away on my terms." And I just did. He didn't argue. He knew he couldn't afford to. I submitted my notice in writing, cleared out my private files, left every system running cleanly, and transferred institutional knowledge to Kira over coffee and strategy sessions. She was more than ready. By the time my last day rolled around, I had my own company name. Finalized IP attorney retained, funding terms drafted. I called it Miles Intelligence Systems, PL Direct. No ties to anyone's legacy but my own. I filed the incorporation paperwork out of Seattle, and set up headquarters in a converted warehouse space near Pike Place Market. 2 days after I announced the launch, 4 of my best engineers sent me one-line emails. "Where do I sign?" They showed up with laptops and ideas before I even had desks. Another 3 joined the following week, including Nathan Cross. He'd left Vanguard a week after Marcus was forced out. "I wasn't proud of how it started," he told me. "But I learned more from your systems than I did in 4 years of school. I want to do this right." I gave him a second chance. He earned it. By the end of the first month, we had seed funding locked. Just under $12 million from 2 separate venture groups who'd followed my licensing case closely. Catalyst Ventures offered to license our early prototype engine for 3 times what they were paying Vanguard. Another firm offered to acquire us outright. I declined both. Vanguard stock dropped 9% the day news of my departure went public. Another 4% the day Miles Intelligence launched its website. Kira texted me a screenshot from the company Slack channel. Someone had posted, "What's Apollo without Miles?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My team moved fast. No legacy bureaucracy, no office politics, just talent and focus. Every engineer I hired was someone I respected. No inflated titles, no egos, just results. The office wasn't flashy, mismatched furniture, a coffee machine that sputtered more than it brewed. But the code we were writing, stronger, faster, smarter than anything I'd touched before. I wasn't rebuilding something. I was building something better. One night I was sketching data models on the whiteboard while the team ordered late-night Thai food. The room smelled like basil and dry erase markers. Lauder bouncing off exposed brick walls. And it hit me. I wasn't proving anyone wrong anymore. I was finally doing exactly what I wanted. No compromises, no begging for credit. No pretending someone in an expensive suit was smarter just because they'd inherited a corner office. Being underestimated had given me power. Now I had momentum and nobody was going to slow me down. I leaned against the frame of my office window, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise break over the city. The view wasn't as high as the old building, but it was better because it was mine. Seattle stretched out below me, still waking up. Steam rising off rooftops. Lights flickering on across downtown. And just across the water, Vanguard Technologies kept pretending it was still ahead of the curve. It wasn't. 6 months in, Miles Intelligence hit a $1-2 billion valuation. 3 of Vanguard's biggest clients jumped ship and signed with us. Our technology didn't just match Apollo, it ran cleaner, faster, smarter, and every line of it was protected under patents with my name at the top. The best part, I hadn't needed to chase it. They came to us. I thought about Marcus for the first time in weeks. Not because I missed the fight, but because I remembered the look on his face that morning. He called me a pretty face in presentations. That was the moment I realized people like him would never see me coming. And that was fine. Their blindness was my advantage. Their doubt was fuel. They tried to break me down. Instead, they wrote me a $550 million check and watched me build an empire. The real victory wasn't the money. It wasn't even the revenge. It was knowing I didn't need any of